Time and time again, Paimon has continued to be this mysterious entity that just goes through the traveler's journey alongside them. The more we think that we know Paimon, the less we actually know about her. So today, welcome to the Emergency Food Theory, where I explore the strange joke that has plagued the entire character of Paimon, and the theory stands that she's the hidden protector and guide of the traveler that will eventually be vital to the unlocking of their true power. Thus, emergency food. This came to me as an idea at 3 AM, so let's just see where this rabbit hole takes us. Oh boy, this is about to be a weird video. Disclaimer, this is all just a theory and speculation and none of it is indicative of the final product. Anyway, let's begin with Paimon's origins before the traveler, or the strange lack thereof. Paimon's strange origins are sprinkled even from the beginning of the game, with her strange attire, to the fact that she can fly and teleport without any problem, to even having her own pocket dimension that she disappears to. Paimon also knows a lot about Tevat's history, acting as a travel guide, and seems to have trouble understanding human emotions or the nuances of interactions that are more mundane. Paimon's name is also derived from the Ars Goetia, the same source material for other creatures like Barbados, Morax, Boer, Baal, and the other major players in celestial events. Mona also points out that Paimon's fate is unreadable, and she is not quite sure what to make of that fact. Albedo also questioned Paimon's power before, but promptly dismissed that after Paimon states she has no real idea where that comes from, and that she confidently states that she's simply just Paimon. But we know that there has to be something lingering about Paimon, considering she's really different from a lot of the creatures we've seen so far. Hoyo also sprinkled this one really suspicious line in the 2.2 event quest about powerful creatures regaining their power over lost memories.
Hey, don't worry! Paimon heard that those with memory loss sometimes start to remember things when they return to a familiar place. Why don't you try going back into the domain? As for your memory loss, did you ever hear those stories? You know, the one where someone loses their memory and forgets about the incredible powers they had? Once they remember, they become invincible again!
And here's a fascinating line from 3.4 that had a lot of people raising their brows.
Seeds of story, brought by the wind.
And cultivated by time. Did Paimon just unconsciously complete that saying?
However, her power doesn't seem to be strong enough to even warrant a divine status. Dotori was able to knock Paimon out alongside the traveler, and she doesn't seem to have much physical power at the moment or even any real recognition of her past. We also know that she is also connected to the Irminsul because she doesn't remember the Greater Lord and had no recollection of the Balladeer until the traveler cleared the air up. So now I propose a theory on why Paimon is the way she is and where she came from, because the second claim is Paimon is the third shade. I made a video before called Barbados as the God of Death, where I dove into how Anemo was the element of death in Genshin's universe, but someone actually pointed out something really fascinating that stuck with me. I can't find the original comment, but they said that Barbados couldn't be the God of Death because that title is reserved for one of the 4 shades. When I asked for their source, they presented me with a theory about the artifacts. Essentially, the theory goes that each of the artifacts represents a shade and the primordial one, so we have life, death, sanity or reason, space or void, then time. Istaroth being the shade of time is a really good solid connection to this, but if we're going to continue, I argue that space is a sustainer's delegation because of how she compressed the traveler's power into small cubes and the mysterious abundance of cubes in important places that have been destroyed, the Cosm and Conria being good examples. Now I believe that Paimon, on the other hand, is a shade of logos or reasoning, sanity, and words. And there are 3 reasons for this. First is that Paimon's role in the narrative is more so a guide. The circlet of logos comes from the concept of word, reason, and discourse. Logos is a term used in Western philosophy, psychology, and rhetoric, and refers to the appeal to reason that relies on logic or reason, inductive and deductive reasoning. Paimon acts as a sort of middleman for the traveler's lack of understanding of the world and the people around them, oftentimes being their voice to articulate their intention. It's also fascinating that Paimon was the one who taught the traveler how to speak the language of Tevat, as well as basically teach them about all the statues of the 7 and the archons when they first arrive. Paimon essentially becomes our voice whenever we travel around the world. The second is a connection of the symbol on her chest and her crown to the domains. This symbol closely resembles the upside-down flipped version of the Celtic symbol known as a triquetra. Now, its original version is known for being a symbolism for the trinity amongst cosmic deities. It can represent the 3 stages of life, the 3 moon sisters, and other known trinities in philosophy and religion. The symbol being upside down doesn't really have a complete interpretation. Some people say it's a bad omen, some people say it doesn't matter, so we won't be focusing on that for now. But what I do want to focus on is that Paimon's jurisdiction could be the domains in the pocket universes that contain a branch of the Irminsul. If Nahida's power is to oversee the information and the Irminsul, Paimon's power could be the precursor to that. Almost like if Barbados is a thread of 1,000 winds, then wisdom is a byproduct of logic and discourse. The third is her correlation with the Paimon of the Ars Goetia. He is described as a divulger of secrets and all the arts, as well as revealing hidden treasures and truthfully answering questions asked by the conjurer. In the Abramelin, King Paimon's powers include knowledge of past and future events, clearing up doubts, making spirits appear, creating visions, acquiring and dismissing servant spirits, reanimating the dead for several years, flight, remaining underwater indefinitely, and general abilities to make all kinds of things and all sorts of people in armor to appear. But if my argument is that Paimon was a shade, the question is, what happened to her? Because now we move on to why Paimon is with the Traveler. I always find myself asking, why was Paimon underwater? And I have a few theories for this. Paimon being in the water could be symbolism of her defiance against Celestia and her newfound friendship with the Traveler. Genshin has a fascinating connection with water being a symbolism for creatures and deities that are outside the jurisdiction of the 7. For example, in the Byakuya-koku Chronicles, water was used to describe the bishops and their realm. Orobashi fled to the Dark Sea, the people of Enkanomiya were sealed into the waters, and the seas and oceans accepted those that rebelled and those that did not kneel. In literary terms, water in the sea became symbolism for betrayal or abandonment. So my theory is that Paimon being in the water is a representation of her loss of power and defiance to the rest of the heavenly principles. There was a 2-month gap between the Traveler's awakening and Paimon meeting them, meaning that during that time frame, Paimon could have conspired against the other shades in favor of assisting the Traveler throughout the journey. It also helps that Nahida states that the heavenly principles are currently missing in action ever since the Cataclysm incident. But we did hear a mysterious voice in the end of the Balladeer's Argon Quest interlude that suggests something more divine is still present despite everything. It's a really fascinating concept. We know that around the time of the Cataclysm, the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles was battling with the Travelers, and Istaroth allegedly assisted Makoto with the arbitrary plan of creating the sacred Sakura by giving the seed to A. That leaves us with 2 missing shades. Now the question is, why? Well, my theory is that Paimon's disobedience has something to do with the Traveler's role of ascension. According to the Traveler's lore, the Keeper is fading away, and the Creator has not yet come. Perhaps Paimon's ascension has something to do with the Traveler awakening 500 years after the Cataclysm, with Paimon's ultimate goal being to help the Traveler reach their final destination, not really to just be reunited with their sibling, but also to gain as much power as possible to perhaps usurp the current Celestia or change the world for the better. Paimon's depowering could either be self-imposed, or even worse, a punishment by the other gods and then cast her aside into the sea as we last found her. But now that we have Paimon's history theorized about, let's begin with her relationship to the Traveler. Me tackling the concept of eating in this video is going to be a weird change of tone, but stay with me. Genshin has this weird way of foreshadowing certain events by playing them off as jokes and soft references every now and then. A good example is the Balladeer's entire story being a connection to the song Bohemian Rhapsody. So the question is Genshin doing that as well for the other characters? And I want to open Paimon's connection to eating. Paimon's jokes about eating lots of food is really hammered down by this story. And before I begin with any assumption or theory, can I just say that these jokes are always too on the nose? Like, you can't have a quest where it isn't just Paimon talking about treasure or food to the point that it's kinda annoying, but I digress. It could be a sign that Paimon is slowly regaining power, and food is just a symbolism of her slowly gaining back her energy. Perhaps every time that the Traveler gains a new power or a skill or a new element, Paimon is also slowly being recharged. Now this is where the emergency food theory comes full circle. The final claim is that Paimon's ultimate role is to be the final protector of the Traveler if all else fails and there's no one that's able to save them. This whole theory is actually based on Albedo's own hypothesis about Paimon and the Traveler's relationship, in which Paimon is a sort of external organ. While I don't think that's actually the case, and Albedo also shuts that down, I think Albedo's claim has a little bit more merit. What if Paimon's connection to the Traveler is both a surveillance and a protector? Paimon is regaining power alongside the Traveler and is also on the journey to find the truth of the world alongside them, but also inadvertently preparing them for the inevitable fight against whatever they're supposed to be against. Whether it be the Abyss, Celestia, or the Tsaritsa, Paimon's here to make sure that the journey is complete. I made a video before regarding Paimon's allegiance, and I argue that Paimon will not betray the Traveler, and I still stand by that theory. When the Traveler asks what Paimon could possibly be the god of, Paimon jokingly says protection since she's the Traveler's best friend. I believe that Paimon's goal in helping the Traveler is truly genuine. If she were hiding any original ulterior motives, I don't think it's to hinder the Traveler, even if it is surveillance. If the gods really wanted to intervene or kill the Traveler, there have been plenty of opportunities for them to do so, but I genuinely think that Paimon, especially in her current state of lacking memories and powers, is really just looking out for the Traveler's well-being. Every time that the Traveler is at the brink of death, there would always be something or someone intervening to save them. And yes, we would normally call this plot armor, but stick with me. In Inazuma, it was Yaimiko, Kazuha, and Thoma. In Liyue, it was Xiao and the Traveler's own power, and in Sumeru, it was Nahida. But there was one time where there was this mysterious power that actually protected the Traveler. It was during the Liyue Archon quest versus Asayel, when the Jade Chamber was first dropped. If you freeze the frame, you can see two differently sized boxes first but second. Now, I will be honest with you, I have no idea what that is, but if I were to put that in the context of this theory, it's Paimon's latent power somehow protecting the Traveler prior to teleportation of the Adepti, just in case before we cut back to everyone being teleported out. Now, this is all just a theory, and I will tell you this right now, that scene was so suspicious the first time it popped up. So it's possible that Paimon's power only truly unlocks if there is really nothing left. But the catch is that Paimon herself doesn't really understand when those moments are, and it's up to fate to decide. Now for some extra notes, because I do want to know where this theory lies in the midst of all the other Paimon theories. And it's that why can't Paimon be Istaroth? Actually, I really like the Paimon is Istaroth theory, but I wanted to explore more on different threads of theorizing because where's the fun in a one-track mind? But there is a difference between her situation and Buer and Marchosias's. Paimon and Istaroth are given separate Arskowisha names, while Marchosias isn't. We don't know the case for Buer being a shared name between the two gods, but I imagine with the line of succession and how the statues of the Seven also adopted Kusanali's form, this could also be the case, but again, we don't actually know if the Greater Lord had a different Arskowisha name. The problem is that we just don't know much about Istaroth, so anything really goes for that theory. Now, another one is that if Paimon is the god of logic and sanity, why is there a need for a god of wisdom? And why was Paimon affected by the Irminsul? This is also a really big counterclaim against this theory, but I think it all boils down to power. Paimon's faith could inadvertently be changed when she depowered and thus somewhat registered her into the Irminsul, something that could have also happened with the Abyss sibling considering they weren't supposed to be a part of the Irminsul either, but are. Maybe Paimon is also the case for that. And the last, but certainly not the least, is why can't Paimon be the god of space? In all honesty, there really isn't that big of a reason why she can't be the god of space other than the circlet of Logos and her general disposition. We don't know anything about the sustainer of heavenly principles, so let's humor the thought that Paimon is the shade of space instead. It would explain her teleportation, and the eating allegory is connected to the quote-unquote black hole that is her stomach. She's like those infinity bags that look really small but are actually really deep if you stick your hand into it. The emergency food theory would also be accompanied with the goblet of Ionothum, which in other languages is translated to emptiness, void, and space. Paimon's constant eating would be a symbolism of that continuous regaining of power by trying to fill up a never-ending void, a potential sign that she herself has copious amounts of power. This interpretation would relegate Sustainer to the circlet of Logos, so there's that. Though, I do think that if Paimon was going to be a shade, her being the shade of space would not be that bad. But anyway, that's just an alternative speculation and theory on Paimon as a character. I actually have a lot, and I mean a lot, of theories on Paimon because we have no idea what she is. Anyway, my name is Aster and thank you for chilling with me. Happy 3.5. Time and time again, Paimon has continued to be... Of course I can't talk like the moment I press record!